Morning, everybody. How you all doing? It is Saturday, August 22nd. 1 week away from vacation, family. 1 week away from vacation. We have a developing story in Las Vegas that we're going to get a source on to talk to us about, walk with us through. We also plan to talk about the power outage in Guyana. In addition to that, the question of the day, weekend, week, month, year, millennium, I don't know what the hell you want to call it. Have you been single too long? Queen Jackie's going to be on with us as well. Thomas Berry's going to be on. Rodney is up. He's working in the background to bring on the source for this that story. So here we are. Here it be. Nothing too crazy this week. I'm still pissed at Tom Harden. Do another story on about twins in Miami. Two little girls, one black, one white, who swore for all heaven that they were twins, and they have conducted themselves like such their entire life. It's such a sweet story, and though they recognize early on, whatever, that they look different, they said that they were twins because they had the same soul. Man, I was in this motherfucker crying, not like a newborn baby. I just yeah. Tom Hartman is the devil. He is 100% the devil. I'm convinced. Every time I watch a story from this dude, I wind up fucking crying. But it's a good shit. Yeah. Look, stop, man. That ain't funny. You know, I can't be a thug and crying all the time. What the hell? You know what I mean? Speaking of, we lost a real one. Old Eddie Kane that went on to glory this morning. The active, the dynamic cat whom we all know and love as Eddie Kane from the Five Heartbeats. We know as the brother, and he played oh shit, the movie with why am I missing names right now? The brother that played Blade, Nino
Wesley
Brown,
Snipes,
who Wesley Snipes, yes, when they were the drug dealers in Harlem, and he
New
was
Jack
off the
City.
chart.
Or you
Saying
talking about New Jack City, or
no,
you
no,
talking
no, no,
about
no,
when
no,
he
no, no,
played
no.
the King of New? Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's when him and his brother were the drug dealers. Then they made the deal with the mob, and the
Sugar Hill,
brother went in and tried to rob him. Huh?
Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill. Thank you. Yes, I couldn't remember. My mind is fried this morning with names, and that's something that came across my news feed first thing this morning. So I apologize for not having his name outside. I know it's Michael. I can't remember the last part of his name, but yeah, he passed away this morning, and I definitely wanted to acknowledge that. Old Eddie Kane definitely played a pivotal role in my upbringing because I watch the Five Heartbeats every damn day, every day. Michael Wright, thank you. Michael Wright is the brother's name. Yeah, I watched the Five Heartbeats. Rusty
WRIGHT.
keeps coming in and going out. Okay, let me try it again. All right, there we go. Yeah, Michael Wright. So he passed away this morning, actually. One of the sucky things, kids, if you're watching the program, hopefully you are, is that the older you get, the more people you lose. The older you get, the more goodbyes you have to say. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
that is definitely the sucky part about getting old, without a doubt. Besides the health shit, when the body starts to break down on you and you start getting pains in areas that you saw, but you didn't know you get a pain there, and you like, I don't even know how this happened. And all you did was go to sleep and wake up. And when you woke up, there was a huge pain in the area of your body that you never even knew a pain could get into, but it hurts like all damn. And it's like that most of the daggone day. So uh let's see, that's that. Again, we're gonna talk about Gary. We're gonna have the uh the source on to talk about the situation in Vegas. What else did we talk about, Thomas? We talked about the television stations in Baltimore. This is very disturbing. So Scripps is removing news anchors from its television stations, moving to a model in which there are less human interaction, more pre-recorded interaction, and it's going to be more like what we do. To be honest with you, the interviews will be more um, podcast ish. It's the way that people are receiving the news is what they're claiming. So they're cutting staff in front of the camera, which obviously that means staff is getting cut behind the camera. And Tyson Foods just laid off a bunch of folks. Yo, it's bad out here, man. Walmart's earnings call. We'll talk about that later on. That's usually a litmus test of how good the economy is going, and they are not looking good at all right now. Uh, that's this ain't none of the signs are leading well. Rodney posted something yesterday too about the huge legislation that the Republicans ran through as soon as Trump came into office, and reminding everyone that the hit from that legislation really touches base after the election come January. Now think about this. The way they crafted this thing was to make it come across if the other side wins in a landslide this go around, it's going to be their fault because at that point they'll be in control of Congress.
Mm.
Look how dirty they are. Now it's going to be up to those in those seats now to remind everybody that these still are the ramifications of what their predecessors did, but they're going to need to take control and take control quickly. This is going to definitely need to be swift action if these cats come back in to uh, power on the other side of November, and that's where we are. I'm not familiar with Diallo Kenyatta
Oh no,
Rashid.
that's something for me. That's a gentleman who we've actually interviewed before, and he was trying to figure out when we broadcast. So much in like what Thomas did when he highlighted Marlon and
I
the
got you.
Travis and Precise and them. I
I
also
got you.
did, but it just doesn't look the same. So
I got no.
it is the exact
It's
okay.
I thought you were just trying to give me a bad signal, and I was like, yeah, I'm not
No,
following that
sir,
one.
I was doing the exact same thing Thomas was doing. Same thing Barry is doing. That's all. That's all. That's it.
Oh,
That's all.
okay, okay, I got you. I got you. Thank you. But cool. Um, so here we are getting inching closer and closer. Oh, Florida was very interesting on Tuesday as well.
Mm.
Florida was very interesting on Tuesday. So the brother in the Republican side of the House won for the gubernatorial side, and he's going to face off against Jolly, whom was a Republican, now a Democrat, running on the Democratic side for the gubernatorialship down in Florida. I would say, I would venture to say, it can't get no damn worse than DeSantis, but that depends on who gets the seat. So I don't know about that. Um, so there were some upsets, notable upsets as well along the way. So again, when time comes, we'll dig into that more in detail and more in depth. Uh, one, I gotta stop saying that is horrible when you're speaking in public. When you look at this month as a whole, now that we're coming to an end, I'm tired of seeing black folks hanging from trees. This is fucking ridiculous. There was a huge win in the Carmelo Anthony case with removing the prior judge from the potential retrial. But still, I'm tired of seeing black bodies being hung from trees. I'm tired of black folk just coming up missing. The sister from New York, her body was found in Texas. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. This is becoming more and more common, and it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. I think we've gotten ourselves into a position where too many folks have let their guard down, not understanding that regardless of the date on the calendar, America's structure is still anti blackness, period. Period. That's America's structure. America was founded, cemented on the backs of African souls being not looked at more than nothing than cattle. There's no other time in human history in which a people were subjugated to slavery under the terms in which the African was here in America. No other time in human history where it was ingrained into law that no matter what you did, you were still a slave. No matter how smart you were, no matter how hard you worked, no matter how long you served, you were still a slave. And not only you, but your children's children were still slaves. There was no freedom for us. There was no hope of freedom for us. We cannot allow that our guard to be let down. We must stay on point at all times. This system is not designed for us. And the sooner we accept that fact, I think the safer we'll be. And until you accept that fact, the least you can do is protect yourself by any means necessary. And that is with the Watch app. Thomas Berry has developed. At least let folks know when you are in danger. At least let your folks know where you are if you are in danger. Subscribe to the Watch app. Tell them, Thomas.
I mean, listen, we've had 6 dead folks found off of the Mississippi here in Minnesota in the last 6 days. It's either epidemic or it's a serial killer. However, people are free to chance it, or you can subscribe by going to the watchapp.org and signing up. I mean, $5.99 a month to protect yourself, or $11.99 a month to protect yourself and 3 other family members. It's not a lot compared to the cost of what would happen if you do get in those situations. You know, people have their daughters off at schools. You know, do you know how unsafe college campuses are for Black girls in general? Do you know how unsafe college campuses are with the mass shootings that are taking place in America? You know, the predominant amount of mass shootings happen on college campuses. So these are the things, you know, that I think that we have to think about. And then we go into the lynchings and the hangings that we're seeing throughout the South and southeastern corridors. We have to protect ourselves. And if the system was not designed for us, then we have to design systems, which this platform is. It's a system for us. It's a system that allows you voice activated to notify family and friends that someone's trying to harm you without that person knowing that you've identified them. Your screen goes black. Your family and friends can see and hear what's happening, as well as know your location. We have a team on the back end that if no one is picking up, we will call 911 on your behalf. But it's on you. And I will tell you, Brother Lee, how many times I feel our collective is sticking our heads inside of the lion's mouth. And we're going to find out sooner or later what type of lion this is, because these are not just anecdotal stories. These stories are popping up across the country on our timelines like never before. And a lot of this is to scare us from voting. A lot of this is to scare us from participating and speaking up. But it also falls back on the idea of us not fighting back, not organizing and strategizing and mobilizing to fight back. Here's a tool that can help us fight. And so I'm happy to say that currently we're inside of the Apple Store, and next Friday, we will be officially inside of the Android platform. So Lee can sign up via Android because, you know, he's a Google user. But this is something that I'm proud of, the work that not only myself, my team, but just my community of people have helped me get through. So We are pushing forward, but make no mistake about it. You should have the Watch app on your. You should have the Watch app on your phone, not just yours, but your family's. And I'll end by this: one membership is great, but if you got someone else in your family that you could ping that joker off of, you'll see the beauty of it because the panic button works anywhere in the world.
There you go. There you go. That's what's up. Now let's transition. Rashi, did you have anything you wanted to start with, or are you good?
I mean, it's gonna sound combative, but I remember trying to talk to you about this situation a couple of months ago. It was a while ago when they hung around not even the six hangings we talking about. It was a hanging. It was some hangings before this, because these are unfortunately, but at least recognizably in a cluster of lynchings. And
Mhm.
so there was a cluster before this, and I tried to talk to you about it. And your response to me was that I was being preemptive and hyperbolic. And no, you didn't use those words, but you tried to explain to me that I was bringing up a subject too early with not enough evidence to validate my claim. And now I just feel like, oh well, because I tried to talk about this a cluster ago, but it didn't resonate with this group of people, so I wasn't able to speak on it in a way that made it seem like it was pertinent. So, not that I'm negating these deaths or whatever. I'm just saying that this is not our this is not the only cluster of lynchings. There was a previous cluster that I had brought to the attention of Real Radio, and it just didn't. It just didn't stick to the wall. So, you know, again, we just got to stay vigilant, right?
Correct. Well, I don't think Thomas implied that there was lynchings that happened. He just said there was six dead bodies by coming out of the river or near the river area.
Oh, I'm
What I
sorry. I was
said,
talking about the hangings. I thought we were discussing the
right,
hangings.
correct,
Okay.
and
Okay, you use
what
the
I said,
word hanging. I use the word lynching. They may not be interchangeable, but it feels the same when the people have to look at it, you know.
Well, I think that is the same thing though, Rashi. I'm looking at some of the people that they've fished out this river, and they would definitely be listed as undesirables. Um, as a matter of fact, there was one platform here that gave pretty much a mug shot, or just a listing of the guy that they identified. You know, saying some things he did like 10 years ago and the crimes and the whole nine. Pretty much letting you know that hey, these are undesirable people in the eyes of white folks. No sympathy for the fact that they found him along with five other bodies floating in the Mississippi, right? And you can say the same thing about our collective of people. I'm always, my platform, the watch is always about people protecting themselves. I'm always open for that discussion and dialogue. The thing that bothers me the most with all of this, however, and I'll say this, we know that we're hunted. We know that we can't um, go without being protected, but we'll make up the excuses on why not 5.99 today. When
mm,
death comes knocking at your door, it doesn't necessarily come telling you the date and time that it's going to be there. Doesn't always show up at the best time for you. And that's the same thing with white supremacy. When you bump into it, you don't bump into it at the time that you're ready and prepared, where you got the gun on your hip, or you with your posse of friends. It happens when you don't have anything. You by yourself, and it's probably the worst day of your life.
mm,
And so I look at this and I'm watching what we're doing around the country. And, look, we're isolating ourselves based off of the same verbiage and conversations that we spew on these Facebook streets consistently. And we're seeing people get knocked off and eliminated. And then we're telling ourselves that we can't trust each other. But when we're in mixed company, that's when we're getting killed. I just watched a video of a sister inside of California who has her Latino neighbor calling her niggas, porch monkeys, etc. consistently. And this family is being terrorized by this family next door to them. And you can't tell me that we shouldn't be trying to figure out ways to protect ourselves. But it's on us. And we got to stop acting like we're too smart. We don't need it. Because here's the truth. We do need it. We need it. I can give you 5 reasons quickly on why you need to watch out. 5 reasons on why our people need to watch out. But until we start taking care of ourselves and really instead of waiting till it happens, you know how many folks I see waste money all the time, but tell me, man, I like the concept of your app. Man, I think it's a good thing. Y'all, they'll even repost my shit. They ain't bought nothing. Even when I gave it away for free, they wouldn't even download it. But they want to have a conversation about the next pro-black thing. Or, Thomas, can you help advocate on my behalf for free? I'm just saying, it's on us. We have to get to a space where when we see people getting lynched and we see people getting hung or burnt or even characters of misjustice that happens to us, we have to start taking it personal again. And I just don't see us taking it personal anymore. You know, Rashi, what we take personal is Kendrick Lamar versus Drake. What we take personal is LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. What we take personal is, should we go 50-50 or not? And I'm just trying to still figure out the 50-50 conversation.
We go to Cheesecake Factory, or is that too cheap?
That's what we take personal. What we take real personal is those things. We don't take personal things that, unless it's caught on camera, because when it's caught on camera, it makes us face things that we ignored, and that's what really hits us. That's why George Floyd hit us so hard, because George Floyd, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, all of these situations, because it allows us to face the fact that we've ignored it for so long. So if you felt like I ignored what you were saying, wasn't my intention. All of these situations with lynchings, to me, and we can throw a name on it, we can throw a date on it, we can throw what happened. I think we should talk about these folks. I think we should get justice for our people. And I feel like we also should be smart in how we move.
And I'll piggyback on that. From my perspective, it wasn't a question about ignoring the situation. It was making sure that we had the facts before we spew them out, because there's a lot of people out here that are just throwing things out there that have no backing, and I didn't want us to be in that same boat, or even consider to be in that same boat. Uh, Again, I would always lean toward the side of caution versus just being expeditious with a presumed fact before we know it to be a fact. So I think in that moment, I clearly said, let's make sure we have the facts before we talk about that. And then once we have it, we can blast it without a doubt. I have no problems with that. But I didn't want us to be on the wrong side of right just to get something out there because we felt the way in the moment. Just make sure we're right and we're good. You know, morning, brother Marlon. How are you? I want to move on to speaking of the news. So, and some of the shit that's going on with the news. So back in Baltimore, I've learned that news anchors are being fired, specifically the 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. coverage of the news. There are no live anchors doing this. So, Script, which is the parent company of WMAR, Channel 2, ABC affiliate, has chosen to cut its staff and support staff in order to move toward a new production model built around pre-recorded reports, streaming, and reduced staffing hours. So right now, that platform debuted on August the 12th, and they're moving toward a 24-hour streaming focused news model. WMAR started in Baltimore on the October 31st, 1947. It was the first news station in Maryland and one of the first one of the earliest news stations in America. This is huge. Their claim is they're moving things along the line. Yes, absolutely, Marlon, of how people are consuming their news now. And you know, I know, we all know. Thomas, you and I talked about the algorithm, how uh, folks are getting more of their news on the go via their phones, via YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, however, Substack, whatever they're watching nowadays, Facebook, you name it. And there's a cost to that. There's a literal cost to that, and the cost is people losing their jobs. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I hinted in the opening, Tyson Foods just laid off. Well, they're gonna wind up laying off over 3,000 people throughout the nation because they're closing two beef plants. You know what I'm saying? Dog, that's huge. That's a lot of people out here without a damn job. Where are these people going? These are stable jobs that have fed families for decades. You know what I'm saying? Do you think all of these people have the educational level in order to go out here and get another? Do you know how hard it is to go out here and get another job right now? There are more and more people hunting for jobs, but there are also more and more people just checking out. They don't want to be involved in the process anymore. They are not looking for work at all. This is why more people are living together. I have a problem with that too. I have a problem with that because it's easier to find people when they're living together, when they're clustered like that. If you looking at a dictatorship like the one that we have right now, because let's be real, these cats are getting closer and closer to being full out dictators. Um, it's easy to round up people when the hell you know where they are, when the hell you know where they live. And it's easy to find out where people live when they ain't got no other address because they ain't got no job in order to have another address, you know. Uh, so Marlon says this is a ploy to feed private prisons. I think it's more dastardly than that. I said before, and I'll say it again. I think this is also a ploy to beef up the military. I think what they want is a huge presence here in America for when his ass loses, and he's going to turn them against us. That would make sense if that in effect happens. But that's the play that I see right now. Looking at it from a chessboard, not a checkerboard. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? More people are being recalled from Europe. Why? Where are they going? What are they doing? What are they going to be doing here?
Mm.
His attack on South Korea via North Korea. Now he's trying to shine up to Kim Jong Un and turn away from military exercises in South Korea. So what does that mean? If you
Mm.
don't know, it's a huge military exercise that happens in South Korea every year in September, October. Actually, yeah, the buildup starts around this time. To be honest with you, you'll start having people go TDY, temporary duty,
Mhm.
and they'll deploy to Korea. There's a whole tent city situation that's built up. People come, and it's slow but surely, right? I was a controller when I was there in '97. You go through a whole training. They tell you what you can do, what you can't do, what you need to observe, how you need to grade folks, so on and so. Again, this is a long freaking process. Then folk come in, and the war games actually start. And these war games are no freaking joke. These war games last for weeks, and you're going through every conceivable scenario with respect of defense of South Korea from the North Koreans and the Chinese. This thing goes on and on and on and on, and then it's over. I remember the end date just like it was yesterday because I was the last day that I drank for over 20 years. It was the 31st of October, 1997. Index full legal. When I tell y'all that this thing was intense, you're going from um, a normal 8-10 hour shift to a 16-18 hour shift. You're getting a little bit of sleep, you're waking back up, and you're doing all over again. And it really is to simulate. I got you, Jackie. It really is to simulate if you were in a wartime situation and you had to do what you were supposed to do in order for you to participate in keeping the war going. Uh, so for him to do that, I could see us turning down that exercise. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen this year because that's rather late in the game. Usually, money is already allocated, orders are already ready to be cut, so on and so forth. So I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but I can see where next year we have a huge scale back of the war games in Korea. And again, if that happens, I could see him pulling troops back from the Asian theater back to America as well. So
Yeah.
this is very iffy for me. It's
K-
very
k-
iffy.
Before Jackie
Precise.
hop in, before I said before Jackie chime in, I wanted to respond to what you were saying about the media piece.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think again the algorithms with people online talking about that they don't watch the news is part of the problem. And again, the news is the fourth rail in this country. We live in a generation where we don't respect the news, but the investigative journalism is what's kept these politicians on their toes. The ideas that Americans have disrespected, you know, journalism the way that they have with podcasting and these personalities is problematic. And this goes back to Precise's point about a black code, a black agenda. Well, the black code and black agenda started with the black press.
Mm.
If you don't support the black press, then you don't all that other shit don't mean nothing. Like the problem that we have is we think these great ideas that we have today trumps everything that was built before us. And I'm letting you know it doesn't. We need a black press. We need Jet magazine. We need Ebony magazine. You know why? Because it kept the cultural strings connected to all of us across the country. It kept our well-being together across the country because we were not reading Neapolitan. Not all of us. It was only a handful of us that were.
We ain't read
And,
Cosmo.
well, we wasn't. Well, if we're not reading that shit, and then imagine once you start getting rid of Jet and you start getting rid of Ebony and you get rid of BET and black folks owning BET, look at how our thinking has changed. Look at how assimilated we are. Look at how overly critical we are of each other based off of what? White penmanship, white ideology, because our press is what kept us in check. When people talk about hip hop and they say, oh, the secret meeting that happened with the rappers, bullshit. What happened was black radio stations got bought out. And when black radio stations got bought out, we were no longer in control of radio programming. So we couldn't get uplifting music on radio stations because we were owning them. Why did they get bought out? Well, because when you start taking off black businesses and you can't get ad revenue, then your business is going to fail. That is a part of media. And so when you have Rodney come out with Our Own Voices magazine and he's in Vegas and he can't get black businesses to advertise with him, then you don't have a black press. We are here in Minnesota. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Quick question. Have you seen ourownvoices.com lately? It got taken over by some Chinese joints.
I heard,
It's crazy. I
but
meant
I'll
to tell
say it
Rodney.
again. But I'll say again, we didn't respect it when
Correct.
he had it. And that's our thing. It's always this new thing. And I tell you, it starts on the
Mhm.
plantation. We don't respect nothing old. Everything we
Mm,
want to do is like it didn't get great until we got here.
for that.
And we have to stick to the foundation, and the press is a part of it. And look, they tore our press away and they saw how it impacted us. Now imagine they're willing to take their own press away to see how it's going to impact them. And when it impacts them, then you'll start seeing this corporatist lean in a lot of the things that you see. So I think precise, you're right that we try to go off for right and wrong too much. I think personally that is our Achilles heel, because sometimes what's right for you may not be a universal right for everyone else. And they are quick to tell us F us, and we have yet to say F them.
That's you.
And we'll let people come and tell us we ain't got no culture while talking our slang, while eating our
Wearing our
food,
gear.
and sleeping with our women. And we'll
Mhm.
accept it. And we will
Mm.
accept it. And we will say, nah, and let me change my name to Baba Ali. Because we ain't got no, because Thomas Berry ain't cultural enough. But Baba Ali, that ain't his cultural name. The Arabs enslaved him. That's why he's Baba Ali. That's not a Ali's not a West African name. I'm just, don't let me don't get me started on Nigeria and why Nigeria was created. See, the thing is, people get to playing with, yeah, don't get me started, man.
Okay.
It's too many internet historians out here for my taste. And I would tell you, that's our problem. That's why we need the black press like never before.
I want to get Elise comment in, then I'll welcome in Jackie, and we can go to the next phase of the conversation. Elise says the people of the United States have been subjected to military grade psychological warfare, the process of disturbing reliability without using physical force. Their control of and dissemination of information greatly influence of emotions, beliefs, behaviors. Propaganda, fear, disinformation shape how they are able to move the markers. I'm sorry, of control. You're
Mm,
absolutely right.
1000%.
Absolutely right. What's up, Jack? How you doing, sis? What's going on with you?
Well, hello. Happy Saturday. I'm doing
Yeah.
well.
We ain't seen you in God knows how. We ain't seen you in the
It
coons days.
has been a minute
No
for
pun intended.
sure.
No pun intended. Um, so we Rodney has someone coming on, but we'll get to our thing because I don't know how long she's going to take, and we can't hold up the show. Uh, the question I had is and was, um, is it have you been single for too long? I asked this question as a 50-something-year-old male who is single, trying to
Mhm.
find my way, and here we are exchanging energy in some form of fashion, right? Because I am a heterosexual man that likes women, very much so.
Mhm.
5'5", 12, 14. No, I'm sorry. I got a little quick. I'm just thinking about what I like. Anyhow, and listening, interacting with women, paying attention to women, what they say it, how they frame it. I'm at awe. I'm really like, do you even have space for somebody else in your life? Or have you
Mhm.
become so comfortable
Mm,
in just doing you that you, though you claim you want to do something different, are not prepared to do that at all? Or it am I the one that's off and I'm just not getting where you're coming from? But then you said in your personal that you could see some of this in you. Share with us what you were talking about.
So it's interesting. When you sent me the topic, I was really excited because I was that person. Well, Lee, I had been married a very long time. And then um, ended up, where I guess my divorce will be final at any day now. But and going back out into the dating world, especially in my 50s, after being married a long time, I'm not gonna lie. My brother has said to me, listen, you're not going to like the dating game because you're very forthcoming. And he says a lot of game playing on both sides because people are not clear on what they need and maybe who they are. And I thought that was an interesting statement. So I went on a couple of dates and then I realized this isn't really what I want. And I'm going to
Mm.
step back and just kind of focus on me. So then I got into a space to where I don't want to take the time to get to know anybody else. I think I went into like a selfish phase. Like I don't want to get to know anyone. I'm good where I'm at. So what happened, I think I was single probably for about 7 years, and I loved the space. Um, and then a good friend of mine introduced me to her cousin. But prior to that, I was like, I think I'm good. And she said, just give him a chance. I tell you what happened. I ended up being on the telephone with him for 7 hours. I never talked to anybody that long. And
Yeah, Rodney,
I
I had the same
couldn't believe it.
response.
And I said, wait a minute, let me just. I'm on the phone this long, and it was never a break in silence. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't want to get off the phone, but I caught myself dozing off. But the conversation was so good. And I said, let me give this a chance. But in entering and starting something new, it was a bit terrifying for me because I had became a different person. And I think I put up so many walls and I had all these expectations, and then I had to stop and just kind of back off and say just allow things to happen naturally. But I had all this. So prior to this, I believe the last time I had went on a date, because I was married like 30 years, I was in my 20s. So things had changed to me significantly. And I didn't even know, like, okay, this new era of dating with social media and stuff. Um, I just felt like at a loss. But once I started talking to him and he wasn't a social media person and we really got to know each other, I had to start checking myself on my own bullshit, you know, because I had preconceived notions on how things should be, and instead of just kind of creating new traditions for me. I even kind of did the comparison thing. Okay, my ex was this, and I had to check myself because I didn't want to put those old traditions into something new because then I would be setting myself up for failure. And I wanted to see how this thing progressed. It's 2 years later and we're still locked in. And
Okay.
I am a different person. Uh, but that required me to do some soul searching and check my mess. And I think a lot of times we're not willing to check our mess. But I had to do that in order to create something great for me.
Okay.
Dang it.
And
You
so,
should you should write a book.
I'm loving the space that I'm in.
you should you,
I'm
you should write a
loving that
book.
we are working on past traumas and can be honest about what those traumas are. Because I think that's a lot of it too. we get into relationships and we're still carrying on the past, which I feel like destroys that new thing that you're trying to build, because sometimes we don't have a handle on it, or we're not ready to be honest about things that we did in a prior relationship. Because I
Mm,
always feel like when things go wrong, it's two people involved. So what's your role? And I had to
mm.
be honest about my bullshit. Okay.
But why do you think? Why do you think
Why I can't hear you? I can't hear you. Hold up.
you can't hear me?
Nah, she
Wait.
can't hear us.
I couldn't
Okay.
hear. Hold on.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I cannot hear. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
But I can't hear. What happened?
That
It's
I
sucks.
gotta
probably
try to
her.
get on from
It's
my
probably
phone then, because I
the
can't hear
speakers.
anything.
And if she has an
Yeah.
iPhone, it's
What just
probably going through
happened?
her phone and not her computer.
Hold up.
Do you have
So
an
it
iPhone,
does that.
Jackie?
I can't
She
hear.
can't hear
Hold
you.
on,
Um,
Jackie. Oh shucks.
damn
All
it.
right,
This is
Jackie. I'm
crazy.
gonna let you chill. I'm gonna bring Sarah up because we have
You
Sarah
going you
on
gonna have to
now.
text. You
I
gonna have to
cannot
text.
Yeah,
You
I'm gonna text her right now. I'm texting. I'm texting. I'm texting her.
I
she
lost
was
my
cooking too.
volume.
She was cooking big
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
time.
Yeah, she was cooking.
Uh, Sarah, we're gonna bring
What
you in. You're
happened?
on
Hey,
mute right now.
the Woman
I got it.
Coalition
I can
shut it
hear
down.
now.
That's what happened.
Okay,
Okay.
So Sarah dropped. That's
Now
cool.
it's
Okay,
out again.
Oh, what?
what? How did that work,
The
girl?
the
You
wo-
dropped the
the
phone.
Woman
See,
Coalition shut it down.
that's it, right? Can
They
you
didn't
hear
like my
us?
honesty?
Oh,
Can
she
you
heard
hear us?
Rodney. Can you hear us now?
Yes. So, but so can you hear me,
Yes,
Jackie?
I can hear you. I can hear
So
Okay.
you.
she can you
Can
hear
you hear
us?
me?
But I
Can you
can't hear.
hear the other two panelists, Lee and Brother Barry?
I cannot.
Oh,
Oh
well,
How
wow.
I
did that
guess we're
work?
special because I can hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you loud and clear. And they look like they're talking, but I can't hear it.
All
See,
right, Rodney.
you were cooking so good that the Woman Coalition
I
shut you
agree.
down, and because I'm the elder on here, I
There
had
you
the
go.
power to get past all of
Hold on,
that.
hold on.
But
She, she 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 called in again. I think from my phone, so I'm gonna try to pick up on the phone. Give me a second. Hold on.
Yes, yeah, I can
Jackie,
hear
can
it.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so hold on. Let me kick you off from this one. Can you
Okay.
hear? You can hear us
All right.
now.
Can you
Yes.
hear us?
All right.
All right,
Now
good.
hold on, because Sarah's on, so we're gonna bring Sarah on, and then we'll come back to you because yeah, you were cooking. So give me a second. Sarah,
Okay.
you're on mute right now. Morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, thank you. So we are on in the understanding that there was a developing story in Las Vegas, and we wanted you on to share what you know about the circumstances going on.
Okay, like what I know personally, experienced
What,
personally, or what I know
what,
from
what,
like
what was
anonymous
shared with
sources.
what was shared with you about the situation?
Okay, sure. So this this goes back to like COVID. So if we go all the way back to like COVID, uh, basically what happened, I heard about this about 2018 or 2019, I want to say. I knew a girl that worked at Hope for Prisoners with John Ponder, and she told me that he was,
Sarah, tell them what Hope for Prisoners is.
oh, I'm sorry, sure. The Hope for Prisoners is a nonprofit that, in its concept, is like really, really good. It's supposed to help men and women who are leaving the Department of Corrections. You know, like they go from maybe High Desert or uh, Smiley Road is the women's prison out here, and then they'll go to like these like kind of halfway houses, you know, where they're like able to work and have a little bit more freedom, and then they go to straight parole from there if they finish that. Okay, so essentially, Hope for Prisoners was is well, I guess it still is an organization that would help prisoners uh, to re-enter society by giving them support services like job opportunities, schooling, maybe if they needed like treatment for alcoholism or drug addiction or something like that, they would give them those kind of supporting services. And all the while they were living at, these halfway houses, and I'm not really sure what the men's houses were called, but I do know there were two in Las Vegas. One for the women was called Casa Grande. That one's still open. And then they had one called Jean. And then, so essentially, and this was founded by a guy named John Ponder. And John Ponder kind of got a lot of attraction because he had been pardoned. He was a bank robber, and he was pardoned back in like 2020 or 2019 by then President Trump, current President Trump. And I want to start off by saying John Ponder is a black man. So I want to say that I do think he's just like a minion in the scheme of the good old boy network out here in Las Vegas. But essentially, back in 2019, 2020, the current district attorney named Steve Wolfson, the he was then the sheriff of Clark County, which is Las Vegas area, and the current sheriff, McMahill, who is the current sheriff now of Clark County, and then Lombardo is now the governor of Nevada. So that's kind of how high up this goes. And essentially, Hope for Prisoners would get its money through like federal grants, or like the lawmakers would give it money essentially to you know help these people, supposedly help these people, so that they would maybe not have the recidivism rate would go down, right? And so they would hold their graduations at like the metro headquarters. And even right now on the board, the current undersheriff of Clark County, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, sit on the current board as of today, and the assistant undersheriff sits on it. So it'll just let you know like how intertwined it was with law enforcement, and also obviously the district attorney that has the power to uh, obviously prosecute people for crimes, right? And so John Ponder, back in 2019, I had heard that he was sexually assaulting women. Well, I'll just say it like we want to come up with, fancy terms for things nowadays, but he was raping women in his office. And why I say rape is in the state of Nevada, people that are incarcerated do not have the power to consent. Okay, so when you look at it like that, you might as well, legally speaking, it's the same thing as, raping a 12-year-old, essentially, under the law. And she couldn't say it. She told me in confidence she couldn't say anything because that was her livelihood. She at the time was fresh out of prison. She had a child. She was a single mother. And I was like, I really think you should go to the authorities, but like, who do you go to? If the people at the top are on the board and you go to somebody, I mean, who's going to actually believe you? Are they going to believe you,
Yeah.
or are they going to believe him? Okay. And then she would lose, her livelihood. Now she wasn't a victim, but she knew what was going on. So COVID comes, and then I actually got a call from a reporter out here. Her story just came out a couple of days ago. Her name is Dana Gentry. You can look it up. It's called the Nevada Current. And she and I spoke back in, I think, circa October, November of 2020. And she told me that she was trying to get some sort of letter or something about John Ponder's sexual you know, exploit in his nonprofit. And so, and she had filed for a Freedom of Information Act, or whatever they call that here in the state of Nevada. And she
For
was,
you.
yeah, but it's called I think it's something about Nevada Open Meeting or something that the press is supposed to be. It's not FOIA, it's something else, but it's the same concept. Um, Long story short, long story short, yeah, she couldn't get it. And she was saying how she thought that the then Sheriff Lombardo, now current governor, and the current district attorney, Steve Wolfson, were blocking her from getting a letter to corroborate, her sources and her stories because simply, the media can't just print things because, you say so. You know what I mean? They have to have obviously corroborating information. And her story just came out this week after John Ponder was arrested. So basically that letter was written by a former board member, a woman, and this was the woman that actually was the female lawyer, former board member. She was actually the one who arranged the pardon for John Ponder from President Trump. So she was a huge supporter and ally of his. And she wrote this scathing letter to the board as she resigned, saying that John Ponder was doing basically that he was raping clients in his office, and that uh, she put it out to the board. So you look at who was on the board back then. The person on the board, the people on the board were obviously the current governor, the current DA, and now the current sheriff. And like I said, her story just came out this week. So it just gives credibility to what these people have known this entire time. And they did absolutely, not only did they
I
know
think I'm
about it,
having technical
but
difficulties.
they were having they were complicit in covering it up. You know what I mean? And then after that, this past, I guess it's been going on for about 3 to 4 months. This girl that worked at Hope for Prisoners not currently, but like in the last few months, she wound up going into the prisons to help women because she was also a former inmate at one time. And she and I connected, and she was actually the one who, in Nevada, you can audio record somebody legally if you're in person. You can't, like, over the phone without them knowing, but in Nevada you can do it in person. And so she audio recorded John Ponder in his office and confronted him about a new set of schemes that were going on, and about 5 or 6 women currently in prison. He essentially would do these events in the prison. He would be able to enter into a side door where there were no cameras, kind of, I think, like the service entry. And then he didn't have to check in at the front. He didn't have to show his credentials. He didn't have to do any of that regular people going to visit a prison would have to do. And he would do these events. And so after these events, the women, the female inmates, would break down the tables and the chairs, and all, and they would put it back in this like storage closet. Well, the guards or whomever was supposed to run those cameras, they would keep those cameras off so John Ponder could go into the closet where the tables were supposed to be kept, and he would essentially abuse the women in there. And during this time, in between 2019, 2020, and present day, the governor gave him more access to people in prison. The governor gave him basically carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And
Sarah, explain, tie it together on why him going to the prison uh, alone and the governor giving him more
okay,
access, why that was obviously wrong.
okay, so clearly the governor knew that this was going on. I mean, if he was sat on the board, this letter was released to the board, the entire board back at that time knew what was going on. And so essentially the governor is the one, it's under his purview in the state of Nevada. The Department of Corrections is under his purview directly. He's the man who essentially appoints, who runs the Department of Corrections. He's the one who allows, the guy who, he's the one that basically oversees it and puts his person there to oversee everything that happens in the prisons. He's in charge of the wardens and the guards and all that stuff.
And
And
Sarah, was there a investigation by the board into any of the allegations?
yes, back in 2019, there was an investigation. That's why the woman left. And then currently, there was an investigation. In fact, prior to the board having an investigation, the actual Nevada Department of Corrections had 86 John Ponder from even being able to go into the prisons, because kind of they were trying to cover themselves up, if that makes sense. It's like they do things, and once the media is about to get a hold of it and they get wind of it, now all of a sudden they do something about it, and so recently what happened is about 5 or 6 women came forward to my friend, and she confronted John Ponder in his office. She got a recording, and the board then opened another investigation before her recording was released. And essentially, what happened was this current board that sits, again, the current undersheriff and the current assistant undersheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, they fired the 6 people that told the truth. And this is recent. This is like a month or 2 months ago. They fired the 6 people that told the truth, basically for what they called gossiping. They fired 2 HR managers who reported it to the board. They basically were still just covering up for this guy over and over and over and over again. And essentially, she got this audio recording, and the way it went down was she had gotten in touch with some media people. They wanted the recording, and she took it to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and essentially said, "You're either going to do an investigation on this, or I'm going to take it to the media." And then and only then did Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department open an investigation. And the investigation, the detectives now, it's a 2-detective unit that are investigating this mess. And the sheriff is not involved. The district attorney's office is involved, but the district attorney is personally not involved. And
So the DA recused himself from the investigation.
yes, he recused himself, and there's just another ADA that's basically, covering the investigation. But the truth is, this goes so much further. It's like, he's just one of many, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not even about John Ponder. It's about all of the corruption and racism and sexism that has been going on in the state of Nevada since its inception. That whole good old boy network. And then other things that came out is the money laundering. This came out recently that, he gets, so all these nonprofits, they get money from the county or the state or the feds, right, to fund their, things that seem like a really good cause and that we should support. However, the people that are running them are, corrupt people and pretending to, love Jesus and be all about, the way of life and hallelujah and, anointed with the Spirit and all that. And I'm not diminishing that type of lifestyle at all. I'm just diminishing these people who use the name of God in vain, if you will. And so,
So, Sarah,
mhm,
you talked about racism. So, John Ponder is Black, correct?
yes, he is.
Okay.
He,
What's the racial element
the,
that
ra-
you're seeing
the
or you
racial, the racial,
understanding?
right? The racial element here in Las Vegas that I understand is, it's easy to lock up a Black man. You know what I'm saying? Let me
Yeah,
start with this.
I do,
I am,
unfortunately.
I know you do, but, sorry. Uh, I mean, okay, so I come from a very privileged background. I'm from New England originally. I mean, I'm white as white can be. I'm 103 pounds. I literally have had the most privilege, if you will, in this country, being a girl, being little, and then being white. And when I say white, I mean pilgrim white, like Rolo white. I mean white, 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 wasp white, and not the
I
Irish
get
white
it.
like the fake white people in America.
We
Okay.
got it. You're lower
So,
income. All right.
so essentially in 2020, when I started calling all of this stuff out on Facebook and stuff, we'll say this, I have a black child. Okay. And,
Okay.
I didn't understand racism. I didn't understand any of that, obviously, because it was never, I'm not racist on any level. And I thought, we all got together and walked with Dr. King, and now everybody's singing Kumbaya, And then, so for me personally, what these people did to me in 2020 and how much power they have is I knew a lot of information and I just started talking and I started talking on Facebook because where else do you talk if nobody will listen to you? So I called out all of them, not just Ponder, but a whole bunch of other nonprofits doing things like Medicaid fraud and the government covering up for them.
Them
And
damn nonprofits again.
they didn't what they did. I'll just tell you what they did to me. What they did to me was they tried to they sent two white Proud Boy police officers to my house to tackle me to the ground, okay, on a so-called welfare check. My son was 2.5 at the time, and nothing would stop me from talking. I mean, the counter-terrorist unit even came to my house. Like that's
Damn
how.
white on white crime. It's just
Yeah,
out of hand. It's
I I
ridiculous.
I I, I did because this is when the Proud Boys were, like before January 6th happened and all that stuff, and I was saying it was gonna happen. And so um, they essentially sent CPS to my house. They rigged a fake CPS case against me, and they took my son because that was the only way I was going to shut up. So that's just what they did to me. So if they did that to me, you can imagine what they were doing to especially black and brown female inmates in the prisons and what they were allowing to happen. And just recently, it came out that Ponder, he would get this money and he set up all these illegal LLCs. And he essentially would give money to one. There was this one trucking company. It's called the Ahern Trucking Company. And Ahern is like the biggest white supremacist. He's kind of like the Elon Musk of Las Vegas. And so but he's very powerful. And so he's also the one who gets all the county contracts for the paving and the roads and stuff. And so John Ponder would give him $10,000 a student, right? And he would tell John Ponder would tell these inmates, we're going to send you to trucking school so you could get a CDL so that you can, have a life, right? Well, and these are obviously people, they're sexual offenders, they're felons, they're people that are not going to get normal jobs or normal opportunities the way that the system is structured right now. And so what Ahern would do is he would take this money, it was 10 people a month at $10,000. And he would take the money and the people would, and the reentry people, they would do their part. They would show up for the classes and they would take their part. However, if you're a truck driver, at least out here, you don't get local truck driving jobs. You know what I mean? If you're new to the CDL thing, you get long haul over state to state. And if you're on parole, you can't go state to state. You can't leave the state. So what Ahern and some other companies would do is they would kick that money back to John Ponder at this so-called gala that they had. He would get half of it back in donations. And then under the illegal LLCs that he had put up, he would give a lot of that money, a lot of that taxpayer money to these campaigns like Lombardo's governor campaign, like McMahill's campaign for sheriff. And he would give it back to all these campaigns so that he could just get more power. It's just like this whole cesspool of things that's happening. And I want to say, like, it's easy to lock up the black man. This is not even about John Ponder. It is about the white people in power that gave him the ability to do what he did. But he's not the only one. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
let's say this. Let's be clear about Mr.
Mhm.
Ponder. Back in 2020, he was pardoned by President Trump after doing a 5-year hitch for bank robbery.
Correct.
So, do you think somewhere along the line somebody else got some kickback from that? I'm just asking.
But
I'm
honestly,
just
I'm gonna be honest. I'm no MAGA, and I think that we can confront Donald Trump on a lot of things. But I'm gonna say that I don't think Trump himself, and especially what I read from this lawyer who was the outgoing board member that set up this pardon for him, I don't necessarily think Trump himself knew what John Ponder was doing. And I can't say for sure he didn't know, because the current governor and the current fake POTUS are, intertwined in lockstep. You know what I mean? Like, Trump was just out here for one of the events for the current governor, and the governor was there saying, why, the president gives his $1 billion friends tax cuts is so that they can create jobs. And it's like, dude, we don't need $8 an hour jobs while your billionaire friends, don't have to pay taxes. So they're like in lockstep together, those two. And really what it comes down to now is that all this stuff is coming out is that there's a neck and neck race in this state right now, between Governor Lombardo and the current Attorney General, Aaron Ford, who is he's actually to be commended. He is the first black man or woman to reach as high in government as he has in this state. We've never had a female governor. We've never had a governor of color, any color, whether it be black. It's always been a white man. So to his credit, he's come this far. And I just think, if we're going to be a decent state, if we're just going to be a state run by humanity, and it's not about me clicking the wheels of Aaron Ford. I like him. I think he's a decent human being. I just think we need a decent human being to govern our state. And clearly, Lombardo is he's not decent. He's not he's not anything. Because in my opinion, if you knew this happened, you gave this man more power to do it. In terms of, he put him on the he put John Ponder on the board of pardons and paroles. You know what I mean? He put John Ponder. He just basically gave John Ponder access so he could assault more people and more
gotcha.
victims.
So Thomas said something. Go ahead, Thomas.
Well, I want to definitely get back to the original reason why we're here. We're talking about these women who were sexually assaulted
Sexually assaulted.
inside of, and we can go into all of the other things, but I would say that definitely needs the most attention because they're vulnerable. They were
Hmm.
incarcerated, and I do
Hmm.
think it makes him a part of white supremacy or racism because he used the system to have
Hmm.
access to these women and also to hide himself. So that would make him a part of racism at that point, even being a black man. Um,
Absolutely.
my question is how are the women who have been victimized, are they getting any type of any type of support, whether it's mental health support, financial supports? How are they being shielded from the system? No, I really mean this
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the system fucks you over. The
Right.
system fucked them over, and they
Hmm.
need protection from the system.
Hmm.
And so, how are they getting protection from the system? Because to me, they're the main characters in
Right.
this situation. This guy, he has powerful friends. We get it.
Hmm.
But what about these people? And are they stepping up and are they telling their story? Are everybody in hiding? Like, what's going on with them?
Sure. So for their protection and the protection of the investigation currently, they are receiving support. They are receiving whatever they need to try to mend themselves. And they are working with the police, but being that is ongoing investigation and the level of corruption, like I said, this is just a two-party detective unit, and those are the only people. Like my friend knows who the victims are, but the victims are not necessarily making themselves public at this time. And from what I understand, they're kind of waiting for the trial to happen, but they are receiving the support that they need, but they also need to be monetarily compensated for
Well,
what they have done.
and can I make a suggestion? Because I
Mhm,
know working in child protection services, victims often make this mistake, and I blame the television, is that people feel like they're safe without their identity being known.
mhm,
It's easier to knock you off and nobody knows who you are.
mhm.
And so I hope that they move beyond that, because sometimes you can get some of the worst advice, even from lawyers. Being unknown is easier to wipe your story aside, because there are faceless victims, and typically faceless victims, people don't talk much about them, and it's hard to protect them. So I'm hoping that they're at least confiding in the people in their family circles and people in their community, so that they can know who they are,
Right.
just in case anything happens to them. When I hear stories like this and I hear it happening to women, the first thing I get to thinking about is, especially when you're talking about the system, you know,
Mhm.
oh shit, we have a hard time getting these folks to release the Epstein files. So
Right.
when you make it this intimate inside of a state, and these are people who are already incarcerated, they're already looked at
Right.
as undesirables. And so it's easy to knock these people off, because they'll just use their rap sheet as the reason why they got knocked
Exactly.
off.
And that's essentially what he would do. He would basically say, "You're going to do this for me, or I'm going to put you back in prison. You're going to do this for me." John Ponder would say to the victims, "You're going to do this for me, or I have the power to put you back in prison. You're going to do this for me because I got Joe Lombardo on speed dial, and I can carte blanche whatever. The governor will rubber stamp whatever I do." I do
Mhm.
know also that the former board member that wrote the letter in 2019, she's a lawyer and she's no longer, I think, in Nevada. I think she's in Florida, but I do know that she has stepped in to help some of these women because she's not afraid. You know what I mean? She's an attorney. She's somebody who obviously has her own safety net and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
the biggest and most concerning thing to me is, do I think Metro is necessarily a unit that's going to do right by these women? I want to say I hope so, and I did talk to the detective about what I know, and she clearly seems to be very ethical, but it's very political over there. You know what I mean? And you
Mhm.
have to wonder, and our judicial system is very political out here. And so
Mhm.
you have to wonder, are these women going to really get the justice they deserve? And the justice doesn't just happen at John Ponder. That's what I'm trying to say. The justice
Yeah.
has to happen at the level of all those that protected him, that knew and protected him so they could get their own campaign contributions and their own stuff. And I will say this, the governor has uh, I called the governor's office a couple of days ago, or the day that some of this broke, and I asked the governor's office if the governor was going to release a statement based on the allegations of the Nevada Current article.
Mhm.
And his woman, the lady that answered the phone in his office, she was very rude to me. She said that she doesn't believe it happened, and I said, "Ma'am, I really don't care if you believe it happened. I'm just letting you know, as a Nevada voter and a taxpayer, that you work for me, as does the governor work for me. And I am highly concerned. And is he going to release a statement?" So he did release yesterday something on Facebook on his official Joe Lombardo for Governor page, but all it was a knock to a progressive kind of leaning group we have out here called Battle Form Progress. And he basically says, he stood by victims and he spent his entire law enforcement career, you know, sitting with these victims. And how dare this Democratic political machine try to, you know, question his integrity or his hard work. And I wrote right on there because I'm really not afraid at this point. Like, there's not anything that they can do to me anymore. And And so I wrote right on there, I said, you know, you did it. You covered it up. And essentially, you're just as bad as he is. You're a vile human being and you need to go. And you need to be in prison right along with him, if you ask me. Not that that's going to happen, but that's just what I wrote. And somebody underneath there wrote, you know, those are actionable statements there. I said, well, they can't be actionable if they're true. And I said, I welcome him to sue me. You know, I got lawyers now, so I'm not afraid. You know what I mean? But that's the whole thing. These women need lawyers, they need counseling, they need monetary. The victims of this whole mess need a whole bunch of things that they are virtually entitled to, because there
So,
are some women who have actually taken their own life behind what this man did to them.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
so Sarah, I want to give the panel an opportunity to ask any questions if they have any additional questions or uh, speak to anything. Rodney, starting with you, since this is your backyard, you have anything to ask or to you on mute? You're on mute. You're on mute.
So I just wanted
Got you.
to make sure that we're clear about the why it took so long for this to come to the light. And Sherry, you had talked about who was on the board when. Just wanted to make sure that we had a good sequence of events. Is that when these allegations came out years ago, uh, the current board had the current governor and the current DA and the current sheriff on the board. It's just that the back then, today's governor was the sheriff. Uh, I believe the DA was the same, and the under sheriff back then is now the sheriff today. And they were part of the board that when the allegations came out, that did an investigation. And Sarah, what I wanted you to do was talk about the board's role in that investigation and their findings and what became of that.
Yeah, so the findings were the outgoing female board member who set up his pardon. She wrote a scathing letter informing the entire board. And obviously, if you're on the board and you got that letter, you knew what was happening. And the only thing that these three powerful men did was basically put John Ponder on like a timeout where he couldn't be alone with women in his office anymore. But after that, the governor, when he became governor, he just gave him more access to do more things. And instead of doing it in his office, he went and did it inside the prison system. Same,
Got you.
same, I don't know, same dog, just different dance. And then also currently, we're talking about right now, as of today, as we're recording this, the current undersheriff of Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the assistant undersheriff still sit on this board. And when people came forward about these newest current allegations, they fired the people that told the truth. And then not only that, they made those people have to get attorneys to fight unemployment to get their unemployment. Okay. And then even my friend said if it were not for the audio recording she had, Metro would have done nothing.
Jackie, you got any questions or you got anything to say? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hold on.
Go ahead. You good? You went back to mute.
You in and you out.
There you.
Now you're in.
There,
I'm just
there you
saying.
in. Okay. I don't know what's going on with you, girl. You there? You go. Come on. Did you log in through your phone? You may need to log in through your phone. All right.
Uh,
Well, I'll add something. You know, the disgusting part of this is
Okay.
that you needed to have. Okay, go ahead, Jackie. Go ahead, Jackie.
So, okay, I'm listening to you, everything that Sarah is presenting, and it's mind blowing. I mean, I know that these things are still happening, and I feel like, Thomas, what you said earlier, um, remaining or staying out of the spotlight makes you more of a victim in terms of you're not going through this experience with anyone. And I think sometimes when you're victimized, it's hard to come forward, especially with powerful figures, because then they use all their influence to
Mhm.
make it seem as something is wrong with you. And
Mhm.
so I think I understand some victims staying quiet because you've already been victimized in one way. Now to tell your story, they make it they dig up all of this stuff on you to make you not credible. And that's just not in Vegas, but that's all over because we
Yes.
do still have this good old boy network in place. So there's not, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of resources for victims.
That's true. And let's remember that this man had the power to put these, it's because part of their conditional release was that
Mhm.
they had to do his program, right? And so he had the power at his fingertips to essentially uh, put them back in prison again and wielded that power so that they, not only legally do they not have the power to consent, but they're afraid to even come forward. And like I said, it wasn't until my friend went into the prison
Did we lose Sarah?
We lost
Did we lose her?
we
Yeah.
lost the audio. Sarah, you moving around?
You know that
Sarah?
cell phone service in Nevada is janky.
That's it, right?
Mhm.
She got
Hi.
T-Mobile. She may need to go ahead.
hold on,
Okay,
hold on.
we
Uh,
got you. We got you.
oh, am I back on? Okay.
Yep, yep, we
What
got
I,
you.
what I was going to say is the main credenza of all this stuff is that he had the power at the palm of his hand to put these women back in prison. And I'll add one more thing to the story. That camp in Jean, Nevada that they shut down, they part of the reason that I understand from some of the people that were in there and in this program was part of the reason they shut that down was because that place did have video and audio of him doing things. They had records of it. So by shutting it down, these women were afraid that all of that stuff that may eventually be able to be used as evidence against him um, would be. And it was
Would
for,
disappear.
thank God for my friend because she was the only one that had the kahunas to go up and fight for these women. You know what I mean? And she did it and she wasn't afraid. And she herself, has a record and she's just trying to help people to be able to re-enter. And she herself, she worked for Hope for Prisoners at the time, but she had known John Ponder in the community long before she ever worked. I think she probably only worked at the Hope for Prisoners for like 3 to 4 months, but she had known John Ponder in the community, and John Ponder was essentially, preaching to people and the power of God and the power of transformation and all this stuff. And I don't knock any of that. I don't knock any of that. But I have a real big problem with anybody that uses that type of rhetoric for their own selfish gains and certainly don't believe that's what God wants you to be or do. You know what I mean? And it's just it's a thing that and I'll just say one more thing is back in the way I also found out about this is back in 2019. So I belong to just my first name, it's my anonymity, I can break it. I belong to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous out here, and have been for the last almost 17 years consistently. A lot of the stories that I got were from women in Alcoholics Anonymous, through a confidential fifth step kind of environment. And one girl that I worked with that was a victim of his, prior to this, she had been the passed around to everybody in her family from the time of 2 to the time of 17 when she could finally escape. And she wound
Mhm.
up going to prison over a robbery based on alcohol and drugs. And I sponsored her for 2 years and really just tried to get her to try to forgive all the trauma that you know what I mean, so that she could be free, so that she could live a good life sober, and she just couldn't. And she took her own life sober, at 2 years sober. And so this has always been very personal to me because, like, I love that girl, and I just know the torture that she went through. I don't know any of the current victims. I have to say that I don't know any of them, but I do know of one that literally, took her own life because now where did she have to go? Like, she trusted the system, she trusted the parole board, she trusted the Hope for Prisoners thing. She trusted. And back then, you couldn't, back then in 2019, 2020, you couldn't go to the authorities. You know what I mean? There was just no, when this man said, you have to do what I want you to do, or, whatever, you're going to lose your freedom. I mean, that's a whole different new kind of scum. That when you're holding people's freedom over their head, I mean, the very ability to be able to eat in another room or go to the bathroom in another room, or, you know what I mean, wear the clothes you want to wear, that's a whole nother level of victimization that I can't even imagine. And he didn't prey on every woman. He just preyed on the ones that he knew were vulnerable and that would believe his bull. Because the ones, I also know some people that went through that prison that have like a personality like mine. And he didn't mess with those women because those women probably would, I mean, they're just not going to take it. So he was a very, very extreme predator. Like, he preyed on the weak, not just because of their position as, ex felons, or as felons or whatever. He preyed on them mentally, and the people that were already afraid and things like that. And it's a horrible situation.
Well, I know he was arraigned and posted his $200,000 bond, so we will follow this story through to wherever it leads us. And if you are open and available, we would like to get you back on as news and events continue to develop. Is that okay?
Yeah, and my girlfriend, the one who actually got the recording, she could not come on today, but she is willing to come on and be the voice for these women. Because I don't make myself the spokesperson for anybody. I just don't. I can just tell you what I know. But this is the woman who really deserves all the credit to bringing this entire thing to fruition. I mean, she's brave, she's not afraid, and she herself, let me just, it's her story to tell, but she herself did a lot of time in the Nevada Department of Corrections. And she herself, was had enough faith in the God that she served to be able to, get this information and come forward. And she really deserves the credit for being the voice of these victims and breaking this thing wide open.
Awesome. And yeah, we are here for her whenever she's available to come into us. Okay.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate all you do, And
Thank
I just
you.
keep keep Nevada on the map because I've lived in a lot of places. This is the most screwed up. I mean, it was found by the mob and it's just run by another mob now. That's
Mm.
the best way I can say. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Sarah.
one.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, peace.
I do want to
So
say, Lee, it's gonna be a tough pivot to go back to Sister Jackie. Like, you
I
just
know,
can't,
right? It's gonna be
you
very
you
tough.
can't,
So
you can't.
let's do
This
it. Let's
you pissed in the
bring it
oatmeal
down
at this
like
point
this.
right here. It's just,
Let's bring it down like this because I don't want to be disrespectful of what she just said. It's not cool at all
Yeah.
for anyone to be sexually assaulted, especially by people whom are supposed to be there to serve them and help them. Let's
Mhm.
stay in Nevada for a half a second. Sister Alicia Good was found dead in a ditch near
Mhm.
Harry Reid Airport. Uh,
Okay.
from the footage, the authorities found footage of her falling down into said ditch around the 8th of August and did not see any movement from her since. She was in Vegas visiting a longtime friend, and the investigation is ongoing as to what may or may not have happened to cause her death. Um, but that's disturbing. I opened the show saying that I'm tired of seeing black folks just dying right and left and right for mysterious circumstances. Like we gotta do better
Yeah.
and gotta understand that we need to protect ourselves at all times because this system is not set up to protect us at all. So uh, Rodney just went off. I was actually going to ask him a question since this is his backyard, but the, yeah, Rodney, what are you hearing on the ground about this situation with the system?
There really is not much scuttlebutt about what may or may not have happened. It really just could be one of those unfortunate cases where someone from out of town who had some issues was just wound up getting in a bad situation. So I really don't have anything to support the things one way or the other. Like most other people, I'm waiting to find out what happened, but on the surface, it just looks like an unfortunate set of circumstances.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So now we pivot. See, we came down and now we just continue and level off. Back to Jackie. Jackie, you was cooking before we pivoted away from you. The question I was asking before we pivoted away from you was, or was going to ask, I should say, was why do you think some people have a difficult time at understanding it really does take two to make a thing go right, and it also takes two to make a thing go wrong?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Very rarely is it all on someone else, the things
Mhm.
that go wrong. There are some bad people out here.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that. There's some motherfuckers that just are never satisfied. Regardless of what you do, how you do it, how you say it, they're just never going to be satisfied. They're never going to be happy. That may be an internal thing with them, or it may be an environmental thing with them that they've internalized. But again, you made a very valid point in which you recognize that there were some things that you had to work on within yourself. Why do you think that's so difficult for a lot of people to do the same?
Denial, they're in denial. It's so much easier to blame the other person because, and I always have this term, we are so afraid of being naked with self because then you may realize the monster within. And not a lot of people are um, open enough to explore that. So what happens is they take that monster into every relationship, and when things go wrong, there's no accountability. We don't hold ourselves accountable. So you have multiple, like I have a friend of mine that has been married 5 different times. And it's always, oh, she was this and she was that. But I know him. And so I cannot say that it was all on the partners he selected. I'm going to say a lot of it starts with him and some of his actions. But like I say, it's easier to blame the next person because we don't want to look at the person in the mirror.
Mhm.
Hmm. Okay.
I had to come
That's
to terms with that, in my own space. If I want different results, there are some things about me that I need to change, that I had to change in order to um, have a better connection, not just with self, but with you know my new partner. Um, and then sometimes I think like you said, environment. I think for a lot of people, if you grow up and not understand or saw what a healthy relationship is, we base sometimes our relationships based on what we saw in the past and not, again, create our own traditions. Because there are some things about my parents' marriage that I did not want for myself. So I knew that I had to change my mindset. so that I didn't create those same patterns. And I think oftentimes we don't do that.
Question: Are they still married, or were they
But
married into?
they were married when they're deceased. So my parents, interesting story. My parents divorced when I was 9, right?
Okay,
But I love the partnership that they had for the children. Like they talked to us and let us know that they were getting separated and why. What I applaud my mother for, it wasn't a thing of, oh, your father ain't this and he ain't that. What she did, and I know had to be huge for her, she allowed us to go spend the summer with my father and his girlfriend, which was the woman he was leaving her for. So for her to do that, I know was tough, but she was concerned about our well being because we thought it was our fault. That's why I applaud them for talking to us.
right.
So at 9, they split. At 19, I was a witness at their marriage because they remarried each other. And one thing my dad said to me, he needed to grow up. And I thought that was a huge statement because he recognized that. That's why I go back to we still have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions and the demise of any relationship that we're in.
Okay, so they remarried it when you were 19. Did they stay
Hmm.
married
Yes,
until?
until the day they died.
So, what part of their marriage did you not want?
What I didn't want, my father was, I always, and my brothers always say, why do you say this? But my dad was a serial cheater, right? And then he was physically abusive.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, was your mama crazy? I mean, respectfully, was
Well,
your
see,
mama
no,
crazy?
I get it. I think she just loved this man. So when they got married, I
No,
think
no, no,
he
no,
just,
no. I'm talking about crazy as far as bringing pieces of him out that wouldn't have been out because she was
I
crazy.
often wonder about that, right? But I think one thing my dad say, it was for the time that he grew up because his dad beat on his mom, and he said what
Mm,
he noticed, a lot of the friends he grew up with, this seemed to be the norm in their household. So I would say more learned behavior. I think in my mother's case, I'm not saying she was innocent, but I don't believe anybody deserves to be beat on.
Hey,
What I'm gonna
can
say
I?
about my mom is that she, how does she put this? She loved my father, but I don't know. Maybe it was a bit of security, having that security, and she wanted to leave home. So I'm gonna say probably the first man that showed interest, you know, maybe she latched on to, not
mm.
really knowing him.
Go ahead, Thomas. You were trying to say something.
Well, one, I think that this is a great conversation on a Saturday morning, and I'm
Hmm.
hoping that we can extend it because too many times the great ones always are short, and the ones that kind of drag on too long are just too damn long. But with this situation here, I wanted to ask, as far as your observation of your parents when it came into your own relationship. Do you feel like, listening to your parents being as reflective, do you think that helped you be reflective in your relationship, the one you got divorced from, as well as the one that you just entered into?
Absolutely. And when going back to my statement earlier, like taking your childhood trauma into relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing going into my relationship with my husband was I had this mentality like, no, I'm not going to be anybody's victim. And so it made me kind of defensive about everything, you know.
So
I,
you were crazy.
yeah, and I'm gonna be very honest about that. I,
So you was ready to fight all the
I
time. Like,
was
hey, you
ready
ain't
to
gonna talk to
fight like
me.
I wish he would. That was my mindset. And so it took years to work through that. It took me going to therapy at the same time because I I felt like I was being unfair to him. Like if his voice, if his tone was different, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, wait, I'm not taking this. So, and it took an older friend pointing this out. Plus, I had this thing, like I tried to I self sabotage, right?
Mm.
And but it took an older friend, an older male friend, to bring certain things to my attention, and because I trusted him, he he knew me, and he said, "Do you realize what you're doing?" And I really didn't because I was so in my stance about not being a victim that I didn't see that perhaps maybe I was victimizing. I had to really think about that.
Now, I have a question because
Hmm.
you got that pizzazz about you. Your husband, older or younger, same age.
12 years older.
Your current boo thing, younger, older.
4 years apart.
Which
I'm
way?
4 years older than him.
Yeah, I figured you was trying to cool it. All right, that's what's up.
He tried that nonsense about the cool guy. I said, look here, dude. I am not 10 years older than you, okay? I had to check him on it.
you out there prowling like, you
Oh my God.
okay. That's what's up. So I think what we come to a lot,
Mhm.
self sabotaging, the the expectance of worse than what we actually have in front of us. To your
Mhm.
point, you're being defensive. And I don't even think that a number of women recognize that they're giving off that energy to men.
I agree.
The other side of it is, I don't know if enough women are actually meeting men versus males of a certain age, just like men aren't meeting women, but females of a certain age.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things that's depressing, well, a couple of things that are depressing to me, when you have a whole list of I ain't going dudes, when
That.
you got a whole list of you must dudes, there's two things that we must do in this world: stay black and die. That's it. Anything and everything else, I don't have to do shit. Marriage, love is a choice made daily. It's not a have to do. I
Yeah,
make that choice daily to be with you. You make the choice daily to be with me. There are certain times when we're not going to like one another. That's okay.
Mhm.
That is normal. We may not like one another today. I may not like some of the shit that you do, but that
but
doesn't mean that we throw the proverbial baby out the window with the bathwater just
that's not
because
true.
in this moment.
Women divorce and separate from relationships at a higher rate because of boredom than any other group.
No, no, no. I
No, no,
wasn't saying what
but
actually
but
happens. I'm saying this is what we should not be doing. So I
no, no,
agree
I
with you.
but I'm saying we got to deal in the realm of where we're at because we got to talk
Okay.
about that realm
Yeah.
Okay.
because in a perfect world, what you're saying makes sense. But this is such an imperfect world because everybody's plugged into social media, which women
Mhm.
are also a higher user of social media than any other group. And that's why boredom for them, the the good guy finishing last again because he's boring, unlike the people on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that are doing all of these adventurous things. And I think for men, what men have to understand too is men have to stop accepting so much abuse from women and stop giving women excuses for abusing men as well. And what I mean by abuse is not physical abuse, but mental and emotional abuse. I watch women bully men all the time on Facebook and Instagram. And I often one of the questions is if he treated you physically like you're treating him emotionally, how would you respond to that? Because what I've
Mm.
noticed on Facebook is women can insult men and the mob will join them. And that's the reason why most of these relationships end up the way that they do. And then she goes into the next relationship and she's still bringing that same type of arrogance and ignorance to the relationship. And it's abusive, it's very abusive. But I think that we have a hard time, having that dialogue amongst ourselves. And I always, we always put it down to maturity. But I think right now, this is just cultural. I think that we are suffering from relationship uh, problems because of the cultural lens of America now. It's no longer cultural to be in pairs. The cultural thing is to individualize yourself. And when it was cultural, people couldn't wait to get married. When it was cultural, you felt bad for not being married. I saw a influencer say last week, he said, oh, he's a therapist, by the way. That's why you got to be careful, these therapists online. Um, he said, "Oh, now it's a bad slate to not have children," and he couldn't understand why people are saying, "Hey, you're after a certain age and you ain't got no kids and you ain't never been married. You're not really a good catch." And the truth is, that's facts. If you look at the corporate hierarchy, they're looking and saying, "I can't trust you with my business. Who are you responsible for? Who are you? Who are you going to make sacrifices for? You show you got 50 years on this planet and you've never sacrificed for anybody." Right? And another scientific fact that if you go back through the annals of history, only 40% of scientific DNA of men has survived. That 40% has been the men who have been able to suppress their emotional outbursts to conceive children. The other 60% have perished because their emotional outburst takes on the idea of coupling. They don't want a couple. They want things to be the way that they want to be. And we have to have that dialogue and have a conversation about that because we've justified it. I'm worried because I got a 28-year-old, I got a 23-year-old, and I got a 19-year-old. And I think some of the things that I told them in my household, I think I gave some bad advice.
Yeah.
Just being
Mary J.
honest.
Blige. Mary J. Blige on Michelle Obama's podcast said she regretted not having children.
Hey, I think I gave some bad advice. I think I told my kids to wait too long, the focusing on not focusing on girls in high school, not focusing on boys, and then I'm looking at my 28-year-old and I'm like, man, when you get into a serious relationship, you got everything to lose now, and this ain't the time for you to be trying out on training wheels when you got more to lose, right?
I agree with that.
Just not gonna work.
Especially
So
especially in the Me Too dynamic. Like that is not cool at all. You know, because you're right. You got everything to lose, and we are not set up with a comforting space or buffer zone for men with something nowadays. Not in America. Like
I, I,
you are
so
presumed guilty
and so
before
Elise,
innocent.
and let me call Elise out. I'm gonna call Elise out. Elise, if you still
I'm trying
walking,
to get on.
Elise, you
I
should
gave it
actually
a link.
come
I'm
on.
trying to get on.
Elise, you should actually come. You should come in because Elise and I used to work together. No, it is no relationship training camp. That's true, but me and Elise used to work together. Man, I'm gonna say this, Elise. I'm gonna share. I was trying to talk Elise to marrying this NFL player. I was trying my damnedest. The man was a good, hard Christian. He was telling his sister he didn't want to do anything. He just wanted to marry her and her children. And to me, as a man, I'm like, yo, you find a woman, because as a man, we play the odds. Listen, you find a woman, let's say you find Kelly Rowland, not Beyonce. You find Kelly Rowland. And Kelly Rowland is saying, man, you got kids, not a big deal. I just want to be with you, baby. And we can do blah, 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 blah. Men typically, if they got a little bit of common sense about them, they're going to make that happen. What I've noticed with women is if a man is telling you this is your safe haven and you got to download the app, you got to download StreamYard, sister. That's why you can get in. But if you find a situation where women in this day and age can have a great relationship, I'm noticing sisters are opting out. They'd rather get their dopamine high on Facebook They rather chase around with their girls. And I'll say this again. I'm not trying to be cruel when I say this. It's a little lingering the lesbianism that goes on. Y'all rather be with your homegirls a little too much, on vacation with your homegirls, and the whole nine, as if you're gonna be able to buy everybody in the store. And let me explain this to you. While you on social media, I don't care how beautiful you are, most men only want a sample. They don't want to be with you. When you find a man that wants to be with you better try to figure that shit out. Because
Yeah.
this idea, like this idea that everybody wants to be with you, I don't give a damn because they call you pretty in your family. It's you and it's 30,000 other pretty women inside of your city. And if you think that you about to go get Mr. Graybeard, if you think Mr. Graybeard is about to be sitting around waiting and he's going to
Zaddy
go
just
through all,
waiting.
it ain't gonna happen. And if you get them, you only renting them. And so I just say we gotta like really, we really got we really gotta have this conversation in our community because I feel
Yeah.
like in this era of white supremacy, coupling would help us so much more. We would
Answer.
have because the data also says why sisters are the ones that's quick to leave because of boredom. Now think about what we're talking about boredom. The only people that yell about their bored most of the time are kids. I'm just being honest. Just being honest. So that's letting you know it's a retardation of the emotional growth of women. And then the other aspect of it is romance. Well, you know what's the most romantic thing is paying bills together.
Say that
and,
shit again.
and
That's
so
love like a motherfucker.
so I'm just trying to figure out this aspect of who's really like teaching us as a collective. And I'll go back to Jet Magazine and Essence Magazine again when they were 100% black owned. These were the constant discussions and dialogues in the magazines, along with the examples of coupling. We don't have that now.
So Rodney, take yourself off mute, Rodney. Rodney was saying that we should prepare our children for marriage. Rodney, I don't disagree with none of that. I don't know how connected you are with today's children, though. Evolutionarily, we get more hardhead every generation.
Mhm.
You can be a strong figure, the beacon of hope, and a lot. I won't even say some. A lot of these motherfuckers just don't do what they want to do. And regardless of the example you show them, regardless of the training that you give them, especially now with the advent of social media, they are more concerned about likes and follows
Mhm.
than listening to the life lessons that are given to them. A lot of them. Go ahead.
I think that we're using that as an excuse not to do. As a
Okay.
as a as a parent, your role is to bring up your child. And we know now through trial and error of generations what has worked, and my generation being the baby boomer generation, definitely pushing the envelope on a bunch of things that didn't work. Because keep
Mhm.
in mind that black people were more likely to be married than any other group up until circa 1972, and you started seeing the decline of it in the 60s. And there's multiple
Mm-hmm.
reasons for that. So you take a group of people, so this thing of black people being black men and black women sort of going opposite ways, this is a relatively new thing in the course of our history in this country. So the norm has been for us to be married. Vietnam, believe it or not, caused a lot of the separation, as well as some of the social policies of the 60s of the men not being home, allowed to stay in homes under certain circumstances. And there's a movie called Claudine with James Earl Jones and I believe Diane Carroll that is a great example of that. So what you have is a group of people who, even during slavery, when legally they couldn't be married, they would still be married until a master might have sent them away. And then after slavery, that husband or that man would go and look for his family to bring them all together. So the narrative that black men don't want to be married, can't be married, and don't want to be married, recent phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
recent, not our history. And if we want our children to be a thing, we have to teach them that thing. We have to show them that thing as best as we can. Even a single mom can show her child what is proper, just like they can show what's improper, because we learn from both. So when we say because of this, that, and the other, they cannot do this and that, then why don't we just give up being parents? It's our
But
job to
but
do,
I
it's our job to show, it's our job to tell. So we need to get to the business of showing, telling, and doing, and making less excuses.
but I'm gonna push back on you on that. And I'm gonna say it again because this comes into this accountability thing that we do to each other all the time. The parents ain't failing. This is a societal thing, the societal norms, and people spend more time with their peers than they do their parents. And your parents could have been married, and your grandparents could have been married, and you may have even been married at one point. We're talking to a sister who said she was married, she got a divorce, and now she's happily in another relationship. We're saying that folks ain't even going to the second phase of it. It's typically they're done, they're totally done. And I'm not going to put this on the youth because I'm talking to my peers. I'm not even talking to young people because it's our peers that's really the problem. It's our peers that are online putting the verbiage out there. It's our peers that are running the nonprofits that are putting this bullshit out into the ethos. It's our peers. And we got to be honest with this because this shit started back in the 60s and 70s. This didn't just pop in 2020 or 2015. And so I think the parents have done a great job. Most of us got here from two-parent households. Just think that we live in a weird ass society where people are now saying I can have a child without a significant other because I can have artificial insemination. I can have a child with this queer couple, and now we're showing folks that you don't have to couple up with the opposite sex to have kids now. And then we're going to say, oh, the advancements of science. I can hear people who can justify two white queer folks having a black child, but they can't even understand polygamy and polyandry, and they feel like they think that's a sin. Like
Yeah.
I'm listening to everything that comes into coupling in a heterosexual normative way, and I'm watching society say, "Oh, there's something wrong with that. You lose if you do this." And what I'm saying is, even if the parents are doing it, we also need the neighbors to do it, and we need the people in the neighborhoods to just do it in general. And even if you don't got no kids, couple up. Like I just to me, when you hear our mental health issues of anxiety and depression and these things in sisters, and then you say, well, damn, you're going through the gauntlet. Maybe it's because I mean, I hate to say it, it may be too many penises that you're going through that might be causing your mental break. Just being real. All those different soul ties that you're having when you could just be picking to work it out with this man. And we're not saying this. And when we pick on the men, see, the thing is, we're not talking about the people that's quitting. We're talking about the guys and saying they're not trying hard enough. Maybe they are, like your son, 36. You said he'd been wanting to be married since he was 25. It doesn't sound like a young man that's not trying, but it sounds like he can't find no dancing partners because we've allowed the dancing partners to say, oh, it's okay to quit. Well, we need to be saying, no, baby girl, get your ass in there and get married. This is what we need.
But that goes to his point of preparing our children for marriage, right? So I get what you're saying wholeheartedly. Again, Precise said it. He says, Lee, every generation gets worse. I was listening to Snoop's first album when I was 16, and that's when I realized it was over for my grandkids' generation. You know,
Wow.
the the constant attack, the constant desire. Oh man, if you heard Snoop's first album, Rodney, you would understand the constant attack, the constant bait and switch about be American, be more American, accept this. Man, I'm not saying it's not possible because I've seen plenty of people do it.
Mhm.
But there's no but. I'm not saying it's not possible because I've seen
Mhm.
plenty of people do it. However, it is even more challenging by the day to convince these children of the way. And the way is, like you said, you get to a certain age, you look to get married early so
Mhm.
that you can define your family structure. Then you make a family, have that family grow in that structure, and prepare you, them, for the next phase of life. It's getting tougher and tougher and tougher because we have folk who do not understand that it takes, as I said earlier, it takes two to make things go right, but it also takes two to
Mhm.
make things go wrong. They don't understand, they don't trust, as we said in the private chat, and we'll bring it public, in the other person on the other side of the equation. If you have no faith that I will be good to you, good for you, then why are you checking for me? If I have no faith that you will be good for me and not a constant headache, what makes me check for you? Now, there's usually a difference there. I'm usually motivated by a very southern regional part. So I'm going to be checking for you. But that does not mean that you're going to be checking for me with the same vigor,
Jesus.
fever, nor vigor. Um, and Rodney, you said it yourself on the show before. Porn is a portal into what we're going to look like. We'll look at porn now.
Mhm.
In porn now, not that I've done any research lately. What time is it?
Well,
Yeah,
I,
it
Are
ain't
you
been
I,
lately.
sure?
I have.
It ain't been lately. That's why I had to check the time. You know what I'm saying? It's been about 2 hours. But anyhow, there are more toys being used. There are
Mhm.
more same-sex
$2 billion
relationships.
growth industry.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you something else that's budding a whole lot now too. No pun intended. Polygamy. Polygamy is becoming more and more and more of the norm. So I've heard in porn. So we will see. That may be the very next thing uh, in 5, 10, 15 years. We see an explosion of multi wife, single husband type family structures.
So Lee, let me tie this in a little bit because polygamy in porn is not new. So because you made it seem like it was something new.
No,
Porn has led into that in three ways. Three, I'm
no
talking
pun intended.
three, yes. No pun intended. Pun intended. So this is not new to porn. Society is starting to move more towards what porn has already presented to them. And when
Okay,
you when you actually truly study porn academically, you
okay.
Mhm.
find that porn
So I need to
point
put
the
more hours
direction.
into it. Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, depending on what your purpose is, but you'll find that
Academic
porn
purposes.
is the
Totally.
precursor to where society is going. So I can look at the history of porn, and
Yeah.
then if you compare society, how society has followed, society always follows the direction of porn in the modern era. And so when you see polygamy actively engage in name, it's not because it's starting now, it's because it had already started and it's codified now. Society will follow suit because society always follows porn. A great example of uh, the impact of porn is women shaving their uh, their wonderful area, that heavenly place did not exist in this up until roughly the 80s. Women had fur around the burger, and that was natural. Porn, and you look at porn, and you women had fur, but for better visuals of what was happening, they shaved the women so you could see the action. And so when people saw that, an assumption was made that it had something to do with hygiene. And it actually is reversed. You have
Right.
worse hygiene from shaving. But if you talk to men, they do a lot of what you just did as an example, though you were doing it in jest. They talk about, well, floss, right? Just to bring it to reality. Or they say, oh, well, it's not clean unless it's shaving cream,
Shame.
which women are harming themselves
Selves to
by
do it.
shaving because of the abrasions, and it opens them up to more infections as well
Infection.
as other conditions associated with women. But it can have a similar impact on men, but it's definitely a greater impact on women. But if you ask men today what their preference is, and this is where you see the true effects of porn, when it went from no preference one way or the other to, oh, she has to be shaven because I want to make sure she's clean. That is just false.
Yeah.
It's
I have no.
bad science.
I
It
have
has
no
nothing to
preference.
do with anything.
I have no I personally have no preference.
I,
But that's
Yeah, but Brother
because
Barry,
I.
you have no preference, but it doesn't change the fact that in general,
Oh no,
the
no, no,
reason
brother. You're not.
why we have
You build it. You're
false
burying the lead. You're burying the lead.
information.
You're burying the lead. You're burying the lead. I wasn't talking in overall. I was somebody watching. So what I'm saying is, we're trying to explain. Like you ain't got to
you know
explain to
what I'm saying?
brother.
Like,
Okay.
that wasn't for you, bro.
But
That
see
was.
these attitudes though, this is a part of it. And we perpetuate these things because it becomes, to Brother Barry's point earlier, now it went from an individual thing to a societal thing that goes
Yeah.
back to an individual thing. So it still impacts us because it
Uh,
impacts our behavior.
I mean, for sure. But what I would say this much too, though, it's not just. It goes back to the idea of what we are controlling. And as I said at first, we have to have a separate media than the dominant society. That's the problem. Even our porn has to be different than the dominant society. When we are allowing them to produce the entertainment, when we allow them to produce the information that we're disseminating amongst ourselves,
Mhm.
we can't be shocked at the results because at one point we used to operate different from them.
Yeah.
Brother said 80% of black children are raised in single mother homes. The black fathers are more in tune into their children's lives than any other group. Yet, because white folks are constantly pushing this piece about black fathers being absent, no matter if fathers are present or not, and we can see those fathers there, we're going to keep saying that black dads aren't there. And that's the part of what I'm saying, because we don't control the information that we're reading. And if we control that information, and if we put the information out and we talked about it from our perspective and we reshape the things with an agenda for us, I think we would be better off. This whole assimilation piece, we've assimilated so far and we're the rug. So of course we're going to get the worst pieces of it all. And I'll say this about that Snoop Dogg album. Das been married. Corrupt married. Snoop Dogg married. Warren
Everybody
G
married.
married. Dr. Dre's been
Everybody
married.
married.
Suge Knight's been married. I can go down. Everybody, the Lady of Rage has been married. RBX is married. Everybody that's on these albums have been married. And so
Mhm.
if the perception is not meeting the reality, if you are going to make Beyonce telling you about her being a single lady while she's married to Jay-Z be your reality, then there's something wrong with the collective. And I feel like that's the part that we have to really push hard on. And we have to say, wait a minute, if my favorite entertainer is married, but they're telling me that there's something wrong with marriage while boasting that they're happily married, we need to adjust the dial and give somebody else a listen. Can we get some Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes in there? Can we get some
Yeah.
people that's singing about love so that we can understand, like, yo, this is how we got here. And if I want to have another love child, then I need to be thinking about love. I need to think about trials and tribulations in that
That's why we miss
relationship.
Lufa.
I mean, because listen, everybody plays the role of the fool. But what happens when nobody wants to be the fool? Then we start showing up like Sister Jackie saying, hey, your tone pitch done changed. Why you
That's
raising
right.
your
That's
voice
it.
at me? Ba ba
Yeah.
ba 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 ba. And the brother's like, yo. And one last point. I see sisters online saying that heterosexual men do not argue with women. Use a goddamn lie. Use a goddamn lie. If you believe that, you are probably mentally and emotionally abusive towards men.
Mhm.
So I want to go back to this 80% of men. Somebody wrote in the comment, the numbers are the numbers. And yes, it is true that black men spend more time with their children than other groups, whether married or not. But there is still an impact on the child when the man, the husband, is not there with the child. And so all too often we fall our fallback is, well, yeah, but black men still spend more time with the child. Yeah, okay, great. But it doesn't change the fact that the black man is still not there with that child in those other times. So just because they spend more time with them than other people, there is still an impact with them not being in the house. There's an impact of the child not seeing the interaction of the man and woman together to set that standard of how a child should conduct themselves. And this is how the male child should conduct themselves in a relationship, as well as how the female should conduct themselves in a relationship, what they should accept, what they should not accept. So that man being in the home, physically in the home, not visiting the home, plays a role in the child's development and their outlook on relationships as well as gender norms and behaviors.
Yeah, but that 80% single, that's just marital status. Does not mean the dad is not in the home. And we always go off marital status versus a father being present. And that's where, if we're going to like quote the statistics and data, let's really quote it, because what we do is we'll say money is the root of all evil, not the love of money. Just forget that first part. And then we say that these brothers are not present. And I'll say this much: if fathers are still not present in the home at that clip, but they still are having a higher impact on how they're dealing with their children compared to the white men who are in the home, compared to the Latino men that are in the home, and the Asian men that are in the home, then that black father is an awesome motherfucker, and we need to give him more credit than what we do.
Give the black man credit, but let's also be real about this. It doesn't change the fact 80% of most molestations of children happen by the non-biological parent. These things have implications on relationships, on home lives, and yes, on society. And let's keep in mind that society is made up of individuals. And so we talk about the village, but if the hut is not right, the village is not going to be right. They play into each other. Yes, there are there is data that says men out of the home. Yes, there is data that says though they're out of the home, they're not married, but they still may be there. But there is still data that says they are not in the home, and not being in the home. And yes, there can be stepfathers that are good fathers, but there's also a bunch of stepfathers who
Right.
contribute
But
to
when
a
you
lot
but when you
of
make
the
statements like that though,
violent things that happen to our
but
children. So I'm not discounting what you're saying, but what I am saying is that it does not change the fact that the
no.
statistics, the reality of men not physically being in the home and not actually being physically permanently coupled up to that spouse or to that boo thing or whatever
All right.
title we give it.
So
It
Lee,
is a data point,
I want to say this.
and
I
we
want to say
shouldn't
this.
keep making excuses
I'm
for
wait, hold on,
behavior that
wait,
is
hold
not
on.
beneficial to the
Okay. Oh,
child,
okay.
not
So
just
let
the husband, wife.
so let's really
Brother Barry, I gave you plenty of time to make your points and you countered mine. Now
hey,
I'm giving you the counter to the counter.
and I'm
But
gonna give you a
go
counter
ahead.
to your counter. I'm gonna give you a counter to your counter, and you didn't give me nothing. I assumed it. You
So
didn't give me.
are we
I told
taking stuff here?
no
Are we taking stuff here?
because
This should
I
be a
didn't say
reasonable this
I
should
didn't
be a
say you gave me.
reasonable
I didn't say
conversation.
it is a reasonable conversation, brother. But I didn't say I gave you anything, because you can't give me, because we're having a conversation. Words do matter. But what I want to say is, if we're talking about the issue is not necessarily the black father, because if you look at divorce rates amongst even same-sex groups, it's the women that are divorcing at a higher rate amongst lesbians than even same-sex amongst men. So this is not a thing about what men are doing, because in these particular relationships, women are the ones filing for divorce at a higher rate. So you're putting the responsibility on a person that's not necessarily responsible for the separation. And it's not about behavior. We're talking about governmental, societal things that are influencing why people are doing what they do. If you said that the societal programs such as welfare, Section 8, and those things were not going to be given to people unless they were married, more people would stay married. When you say I'm going to give it to single women, you are giving women the ability to opt out. And what I'm saying is that men are really the ones who are saying they're willing to work through it. Even if they're not in the home, they're still going back to the home to help raise those children. And that is something that we have to talk about. We just put it on the man's feet as if you can knock a woman upside her head and drag her to marriage. That's not how that works. She has say so in this situation, and we don't want to do it because we feel like it's going to offend our mother if we say, "No, mom, you got a role in this. You get to decide." Mom, did you file for divorce? Dad didn't file for divorce. If dad's going to stick around, but it's the ego of the man to always feel like they're in control of the outcome. Men are not always in control of those outcomes. And that's something that I definitely wanted to end with because we do this a lot. And I'll say it again, and Jamar is right. For one, we don't own the data. I hate the fact that we quote data that we do not control. We don't know nothing about the studies. We have no power in the studies, but we rely on them just like we rely on the King James Bible.
Now, to Rodney's point, and I understand both your perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I tried to get through a little bit earlier when I said, every generation is more hard headed than the one preceding it. And to your point, Thomas, you can't make a woman marry you that doesn't want to marry you. You can't make a man marry you that doesn't want to marry you as a woman. If you don't see the value in that other person, then that's the problem. Now, pouring into our children the necessity or the foundational piece of the desire of marriage is very important, absolutely. But they still have to make that choice. And unfortunately, socially now, they are turned away consistently from making that choice. So it's not impossible by no stretch of the imagination, but I think it is more difficult to get folks to that altar than it has been in the past. Again, see a lot of young folks getting married. I'm encouraged by that. I even see some older folks getting married. You know what I'm saying? Recognizing that they made some mistakes in the past, they've done the work. Now they want to find somebody to be with for whatever's left of their lives. And that's a beautiful thing. Uh, what we do not have time for, though, is to get stuck on this hamster wheel going round and round.
Yeah.
The importance of family will never be discarded by me. The importance of building a solid foundation to leave a legacy with for is extremely important to me. I think, though, that we do need to get a better understanding amongst ourselves and our children about the advantages of coupling with somebody, to love
Absolutely.
them, to support them, and to have them do the same to us. Thomas, to your point, you think you may have given some bad lessons. My lessons to my kids were, yo, look, man, 28, 32. That's when you want to have your children at the latest. You don't want to be much older than 32 because you don't have the energy to run behind these little bastards much.
For
You
sure.
know, boys in your 50s, like, that's the last thing you want to do, man. So I'm not saying rush out here and have children like I had you all, but don't wait too daggone long. Seriously, man. Like you start getting critical mass around 28 when once you hit 32, dog, it's like, ooh, you can still do it, but I need you to understand that's going to take a whole lot out of you. And I also need you to understand that the folks around you who understood the assignment earlier than you, don't be upset with them when they taking trips and doing this and doing that. And you still talking about, man, the kids got to go back to school next week. They little kids.
Right.
What are you
Right.
talking
Right.
about? Oh, that's right, man. I forgot your ass waiting until later on in life, man. Look, dog. Because when you in your 50s, you want that freedom of being able to move around and like, look, I can do this, I can do that. This how I want to do it. This how I don't want to do it. I'm da 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 da. You don't want to be held account to no damn snot nosed kids and prom and
Mm.
all that. Now, as a grandparent, you choose whatever you want to do with that.
For sure. For
But
sure.
as a parent, direct parent, Nah, dog. I'm good. I'm telling you, like meeting a meeting a young lady now in her 50s and she's saying she got a freaking preteen or a teen. It's like, oh shit, I'm going to Africa next week. Like, how you gonna do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm coming back and I'm going to Ecuador, like, and I'm not talking about doing no damn summer break. I'm going whenever I choose to.
Mm-hmm.
How that's gonna work? Now, if you cool with it, then I'm cool with it. But what I don't need is for you to be throwing shit in my face. But you always gone. You always. I made different choices, babe.
Yeah,
I made different
absolutely.
choices. So at this stage in life, I can literally do whatever the hell I wants to do. You know what I mean? You made it. I'm not mad at you about your choice. I accepted you and your choice fully when I decided to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't be mad at me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm still going. That pussy may be the bond that had me great. We can get along great. I still need to take this trip. You know,
Right.
I still need a
That's a
mental
great
break
point.
for
That's
me.
a great point.
Right, I need a mental break for
Yeah.
me so I
Uh-huh.
can be of service to you, the children, and our community. And I need that. You know
Yeah.
I need that. I do it every year the same time. Why are you mad? You know what I'm saying? Well, I can't take 2 weeks because what we gonna do with the kid? That, that ain't
Yeah.
my problem. You know, that was
Yeah.
that's a choice that you made.
Right.
Now, when we before we got together and said all these I do's and I love you, we had this whole damn discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why in year 3, year 5, it done switched up on me? You done changed it all up. You coming at a brother like I got 3 heads. Like, did we not have this conversation?
Yeah.
You know that
Did you
they thought
not agree?
she
Did you
thought she
not
could
tell
change
me,
her.
hey, I understand, that our lives are different. I can deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Okay, cool. And I'm not cutting my shit down to a week because your ass can't go. How is that right to me? How is that
Mm-hmm.
fair to me? Because women love to throw that fair word. Right? It's not fair. Well, how's
That's
that fair
not
to me?
fair. Yes.
Yeah, how's that fair
So
to
Jackie,
me?
Yeah.
so Jackie, let me ask you this as a woman, because
Mm-hmm.
how do you approach that conversation with your kids? Because I'm over here, I'm like, damn man, they listen too damn well. I should have said, okay, you could have a boyfriend or girlfriend at 16 or some shit. I kind of did a little too well of a job.
So, okay, I'm 60. I love
Okay.
saying that because, it's a big deal. So at
Right.
60, I have a 17-year-old granddaughter. So
Mhm.
we talk about relationships often. But my son is 38. And I
Okay.
can remember having, I always said I grew up in a household to where a lot of things you couldn't talk about. So when I had my own child, and I only have one, two bonus children, but I wanted to have open dialogue. I didn't want him going outside and learning all of the wrong stuff.
Right.
Mm,
So we could talk about anything, no matter how uncomfortable it was. And going to comfortability, I gotta share this story. I always talk about this in my comedy. When my son was 15, I think he got his first piece, right?
Okay.
I don't know why y'all attitudes change, right? I remember telling him to do something, and he had a little bass in his voice.
Oh
And I
yeah.
wanted to know who the hell is he talking to? So I asked him, did you get some? Because I think you kind of got me messed up with the way you responded. And he said, Ma, why would you ask me? Long story short, he did get his first piece. So I wanted to talk about it because that wasn't my son. He don't respond to me like that. So we talked about it, and he said, you know, it was different. Ma, I said yes because it was your first piece. You didn't you watched. I knew he was watching my dirty tapes. But now
Uh-oh.
you
Yep.
actually had a chance to
my dirty
experience.
tape.
Tapes.
So,
A
yeah, I
cool
took
way of saying
away,
porn.
Right,
A
right.
cool way of saying
Yeah, I'm
cool.
trying, yeah. So, but in talking to him about it, and I was glad that I had the relationship with him that he could be open about it. But guys, I got a funny one for you. Why he told me he lasted 7 hours? 7 hours at 15, right? So then I started thinking about it, and I looked at, because I was married then, I looked at my husband like, you might owe me 6 hours and 50 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Wow,
So then I
that's
got to
dirty.
talking to my son about it, and he was telling me not all the details, but basically he was massaging her and stuff like that because I taught him how to do those things. And I said, oh, okay, so y'all were more intimately
Right,
connected. But I say that to say, if we're talking about relationships and influences on these kids, it still has to be some kind of community, right? It has to be the village. And I'm fortunate that I had the village coming up, which is probably why I could have an open conversation with my son. Um, Before I got married, before I decided to get married, my husband had 2 kids. For me, still thinking village wise, okay, these kids gonna be spending time here. I need to have a sit down. Matter of fact, let's get your children's mother and my son's father to the table. Because I need to make sure we're all on the same page.
Same
Because these
right.
page.
kids are not coming here and then
Come on.
going back home and saying,
Come
Miss
on.
Jackie did this.
Come
And
on.
in my house, my son gets spanked. So if they step out of line, they getting their asses spanked. So I need to make sure that everybody's on the same page, or I
Yes.
cannot move forward in this relationship.
I got
Come
you.
So
on.
we all came together. We agreed that if there was a problem, the adults would talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's almost non existent in today's world. So I got to go back to the village because it's what I saw coming up. So we have to take responsibility for that continued village support.
Gotcha. Now we got to wrap because we've been going long, 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 long.
Okay.
So that is a great place to wrap at. Um, Last couple of words for me. Uh, Gary, Indiana, certain parts have been without power since August the 11th. They're not expected to get power until
Mm,
Tuesday, Thursday of this week coming. Hopefully, those folks will get power soon. Roughly 63,500 residents or people, I should say. No, residents is residents, so customers are without power in Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana, if you don't know, is an extremely black city. Um, and it was hit by a storm. Some bad weather came through there. What's allegedly happening is a lot of debris, a lot of down power lines that's causing this. Now, the questions I have is what about the infrastructure? How much money has been spent on the infrastructure
right.
in the city over the years to prepare for something like this? I'm curious to know and follow this story as it continues to develop to see if that was a bigger contributor to this going on. Jackie, thank you for your time. At least sorry for not being able to get you on, sis. Wanted to really get you on. Uh, Rashi, Rodney, Thomas, thank you all. You all, as always, came through like we do. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us as well. Thank you for that on the ground insight as what's going on in Vegas. Family, if no one's told you they love you, we do, and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Until next week, actually, I'll be in Ghana next Saturday, so it's going to be even most yeah, it's going to be even more special. All
That's
right,
awesome.
now, peace.
Happy Saturday, y'all. Have a good day.
All right, take care.
All right.